Welcome to the With Generous Hearts podcast. I'm your host, Danielle DeNise, and y'all, you are in for a treat today. In this bonus episode, we get to sit down with 4 of the clergy here at Christ Church: Alan and Connor, Elizabeth, and Joshua. And let me just say this, you have gifted leaders who serve here that love God and love you. So listen today to hear them talk about the joy of this calling, walking through seasons of life together, and the way that God holds us in all of it. Welcome to the podcast. Today we have a bonus episode of the With Generous Hearts podcast, and I am so excited and grateful to sit down with 4 of the clergy on the podcast to talk story and generosity and perseverance. So I want to welcome Alan and Connor and Elizabeth and Joshua to the podcast.
Good to be here.
Good to be with you all. Now, I know that sometimes, having been around the church for a long time, when people hear priest or pastor, it's a mystery of what you do. They think, okay, you work on Sundays, right? But there are a lot of things in between that. And I know we could spend a whole podcast explaining what you actually do and talking about your portfolios, but I wonder, as a way to start us today, if you would share with us, what is your favorite thing about what you get to do in this place?
I'll go first.
Okay.
Preaching has always been one of my favorite things, but to narrow it down to Christ Church, because of the specificity of this place, my favorite thing I get to do is the 1-hour lecture classes in CCWBS, or the same kinds of classes that sometimes happen in All Saints Hall. It's a joy to join with those women or the people in All Saints Hall to explore either a Bible story or some aspect of our faith that we all want to dig into.
Oh, that's awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, I think also, having been a teacher, I look for opportunities and have found that the collision of teaching with church that shows up in chapels is what I love the best. So I think anytime that I get to teach or lead worship with the preschool or with children and youth, I think is my favorite thing to do.
Yeah, I mean, for me, there's 2 parts of it. There's the just getting to be with the people of Christ Church and all the different ways that we do. In our role, we get to walk with people on the brightest of days and on the darkest of days, and just being able to walk that journey with people on a day in, day out, sort of yearly basis is it's amazing. And the conversations and relationships that we get to share with people is I'm fed by it, and it makes Christ Church a home for me in a lot of ways. The other side of that for me is also equally what I love is being able to have colleagues and like this and the rest of the team and staff at Christ Church, and to be able to watch people laugh and lean into their gifts and figure out how it is that the stuff that we do is real and relevant. And then to see it go from like an idea to an actual, whether it's a Bible study or a class or a retreat or an experience that people get to do, to be able to be in both of those spaces is what I really love about being here at Christ Church and being in this space.
Okay. How about you, Connor?
Kind of echoing what Joshua said, I love that we're invited into these like hinge moments for people, these like really major moments. And we're invited to simply be present. We're not bringing God into the moment. One of the definitions of pastoral care that I love is speaking the name of God in a room where his name has not been spoken yet. And so coming into a room and saying, like, God is here in the death, in the wedding, in the big question that you have about your life. Interesting. And that shows up in the classroom and in the hospital and here too. So it's just being able to say, like, God is here in your life. It's an amazing blessing.
I love that phrase, hinge moments, that these are moments where people can go one of 2 ways, that they can say, God, where are you? Or lean into that. And actually, one of the things that I had thought about having as part of this conversation, this podcast has been inviting people to share their stories of perseverance and generosity and where they're finding God in unexpected places. And one of the questions was, what does it feel like for you as priests to be invited into those hinge moments? Not just functionally, what do you do, you, but what does it mean to you as people and priest and pastor in a moment to be invited in, as you said, Connor, in weddings and exceeding joy, but also in grief and heartbreak? How do you talk about that as part of the call that you have to this place and to your vocation as priests?
One of the acts, or one of the things that a lot of us do before we go into particular settings or moments is before we put on a stole, people will see us sometimes kiss the back of the stole, and it can feel very precious, right? Or like, oh man, well, that's awkward. What are you doing? I can say for me that part of the act of kissing the stole and placing it around my shoulders is an acknowledgement that I'm a human like everybody else. Surprise, right? I'm a human like everybody else. I'm not a robot. I have real feelings and real experiences in the moment. But the peculiar thing about my vocation that I've come to know to be true over the last couple decades is that, like, I'm not actually the one that bears the weight of whatever the moment is that I'm walking into. And the moment I forget that, it becomes too much for me. The moment I forget that this is a vocation, a call, that a gift that's been given to be my God, and that stole or the prayer beads that I have in my pocket or whatever it is in the moment that I'm able to wear is able to carry those things, is the moment that I'm just able to experience those in community with other people just as another human. And so I think what I would name and what comes up for me as you ask that question is what it's like for me is what it's like for everybody else. It just so happens that in my vocation, I'm invited to move into that space and to do what shamans or priests or healers or whatever have done from generation to generation, and that is to help people name, to help people mark time, and to help people to attend to the moment that we're in the ways that we're called by God and in community with others to do it. And so that's what comes to mind when I hear you ask the question that way.
I think I can't think about it in the moment because I genuinely get pretty emotional and overwhelmed by the sheer honor. And that's what I say to families, like after a funeral, after a wedding, and they say, thank you so much for doing that. My genuine response is, it's an honor to get to do this.
Yes.
And kind of the absurdity that someone like me, like kind of a nobody from nowhere, gets to walk with people through this. And it makes me think of Jesus picking 12 pretty unimpressive people and sending them out into the world, and they utterly transformed the world. And that God continues to call fairly unimpressive people.
Not that you're saying anything about your colleagues.
No. Yeah. I'm talking solely about myself. That's what I think. Like sheer in the moment. Like I did a wedding last weekend, and the moment when the doors open, the bride's coming down, the joy, the wonder, all of it. And they've asked me, I get to stand there and be present to them and communicate the blessing of God to them. Like, it's wild. It's absolutely wild.
Elizabeth, I'm thinking about this question too for you, where we've talked about milestones like funerals and weddings, but those milestones are different for families and children and youth. How does that feel as priest, as someone walking with them in milestones that maybe don't get marked by a ritual, but are named and marked by you and your staff? And
I love that question. Thanks. I think that there is a generosity of spirit that's offered, sometimes intentionally, and sometimes much more covertly when you're welcomed into any part of a family or a person's journey. And I think as we walk in our role as clergy, it is right and good for us to stop, and as we reflect on each day, think about, what are the things that really glittered? And then where was God still right there in the really jagged spots? And my experience with my own family and with other families is that there's a lot of glitter, but there's also a lot of jagged. And that it's a really holy thing, and it's a very generous thing to allow other people in to get to be a part of both of those. And I'm grateful. It makes me, I think, a better person. It makes me more appreciative of both my call and just my humanity because I'm welcomed into those moments so fully at so many different times. And the big ones certainly are easy to reflect on, but you're absolutely right. A passing conversation about a forgotten gym bag,
Right.
a passing conversation about the thing you said that felt like your parenting win of the week, or that you wish you never had put words to, whatever it is, those are really holy moments. And I feel honored, and I feel like it's a great generosity to be offered to walk with people through them.
I think about the moment when a different door opens and I've sat the family for the funeral and I come around and I'm about to walk through the back and I ask everybody to stand and I say the beginning of the funeral liturgy, I am resurrection and I am life. And in that, it is my voice proclaiming a truth that is not mine, but that I'm trying to adopt every day in my own life, but that by me proclaiming it in that space and in the way I'm doing it, and by being myself as I do it, I am somehow making that truth more accessible, easier to believe for the people in that room. And I think that is, again, to get back to the weight of it all that Joshua talked about, and Connor too at the beginning of it, like, if I think I've got to do it all, then it's impossible, whether it's the joyful thing or the really hard, sad thing, or the hospital room or whatever. And so I think about that phrase as a kind of sacrament that I carry with me into every space, that I bear that sacrament, but I am not the sacrament.
I think one of the unique things about a church and leaders in the church is the opportunity to steward people's stories and to hold them. And what you're describing is that it's everyday stories, but it's also these stories that are going to mark hinge moments that are going to change people's lives, that they're going to be different after they walk in. And so getting to name God or getting to proclaim resurrection or saying this is not the end of the story. That is what resurrection means, is that there is more to this, I think is really, really powerful. And part of perseverance, as I've been thinking about it, as the parish is talking about it on the whole, is the ability to name the thing as it is and say, and we can keep going because God is already going, right? That God is already persistent. God is already relentless. God is already, as you said, Connor, I think it's really helpful to remind people we don't bring God into a room. God already exists in the space. And I wonder, as you think about people sharing stories of perseverance, sharing those things, how for you have you seen perseverance and generosity show up in your own world and your own life?
I think what comes to mind immediately is the perseverance of the liturgy and kind of life in the church. So I have been through a number of kind of trying times. My mother was sick when I was a child and passed away when I was young. My father passed away in seminary. And in all these moments, we talk a lot about when we say perseverance. First of all, it's God's perseverance, not our own. It's not, when we say the power of perseverance, we're not saying try harder. But we're saying look to the perseverance that God shows in his relationship with us, but also the perseverance of the saints, the perseverance of the church. I think about the prayers and the communities that held me at 8 when my mother passed away, that held me in seminary when my father passed away, that hold me now. And I was just thinking this morning, I got to celebrate a Eucharist for a family who's going through a hard time, and the same prayers that I prayed at the Eucharist today were prayed when I was going through a hard time, all the way back to 8 and before. And there's power in the same words, but also putting ourselves in the same position, kind of showing up even when we're not sure what we're doing here and what we believe, and putting ourselves in the place where we know God has been for us in the past. We don't know if God will be there for us now. We hope God will. We have faith that God will. But kind of persevering through the moment when we think, I don't want to go, or I don't want to show up, or I'm not sure what is happening. It does take perseverance sometimes to just put on your sport coat and go to church. But we're trusting that in being perseverant there, that God will be there.
I think what you just described is beautiful, of that in these moments the community held you, and that it transcends time and experience, that these prayers are holding you. I was thinking, part of my story is that I'm a cancer survivor, and when I was having my surgeries and things like that, someone gifted my mom a prayer shawl, and she still to this day, it's been 20 years, still to this day, she has that prayer shawl, and she's like, that community is holding me in this hard thing. They have probably no memory of handing me a gift bag with a prayer shawl in it. Yeah. But when my dad died, my mom was like, guess what? That community that made this 20 years ago is holding me now in this really beautiful moment. So I think what you're naming too is this generosity of God in time and space. Mm-hmm. You know, that the church is persevering and shows up in these moments. I think that's beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. How about for others of you?
The first thing that comes to my mind is really about the generosity of parish. So I'm thinking less about the personal story, but I think about the number of times when we ask people to participate in, whether it is backpack drives or whether it is food drives or whether it is anything that's related to basic needs. And time and again, we have these bins that sit outside the outreach office, and we'll show up one day, and not only will the bins be full, but there'll be stuff everywhere, like all cascading out into the office. And I think the image for me around that is just around how a lot of giving nowadays, we invite people, a lot of giving nowadays can be automated through clicking on Amazon and shipping it to the church. But I've started saying to people, when you do that, once you click the button and it says your order is on the way, your work is not done. The invitation in that moment, once it says the order is on the way, is to pause and to pray for the person or persons who will be impacted by the gift that you have just sent to the church, right? But it doesn't stop there. It shows up here, and then we have other volunteers who show up and they give of their time and they sort and pack and organize all the things that are there. And then eventually, the things that we've gathered make their way to those who may be most in need of them. And what I have to trust in the midst of that journey is that generosity reaches its point or its destination or the person to whom needs it at just the right time. And that God's work of cultivating perseverance starts way back at the beginning. That may have been the fifth of 7 clergy announcements on a Sunday morning, but that inspired someone enough to pull their phone out, maybe during the offertory, to purchase something on Amazon, to have it sent to the church, to have it arrive to be sorted by gracious people who are acting out their faith through simple acts of service, to then making its way through someone who drove it there to be at the right point, so that when a child showed up in a classroom and their mom didn't know how they were going to have the supplies they needed, that they showed up. And that gave not only the mom, but that child just maybe a little bit more hope in humanity, or maybe a little bit more faith that God really does provide for us, such that that child has a chance to learn and to grow and to become who God's calling them to be in a world where they might too one day give back in a way that might be different, or at least know of God's faithfulness to them. And so for me, that's what comes to mind about how this work of both generosity and responding to simple requests and God's work in the midst of it all kind of connects together with perseverance in this theme.
This is a good segue. I'm sort of letting Elizabeth and Alan off the hook right now. But the question that I keep returning to is, why Jesus and why the church now? Our world is, I think on its best days, still a dumpster fire. And I was just talking with a friend yesterday that was like, I'm like too afraid to parent right now, but too afraid not to parent because it's terrifying what is going on. And I wonder in the world that we live in, where there are kids who don't know where school supplies are going to come from, where there is violence that feels unending, where there is numbness and apathy because we cannot take in anymore, and also addiction to our phones and taking in everything we can, and overwhelm and exhaustion. And listeners, by the way, like, these humans around the table also experience that as humans, right? That's the reality of this. But I wonder, someone in their overwhelm and exhaustion and their fear says to you, like, why the church? Why now? Like, why do we need this place? What do you say?
I can jump in and say the community is what will hold you, but you can find community on a pickleball court, and those are great places, and you can move around, and like, I find that myself. But why the church community is because I think the unique story of the Christian message that says God so loved the world that God was willing to come and be part of the world, to come and find us in the middle of that brokenness, is the thing that the church has to offer, and that can meet, it sounds a little theologizing, but it really can meet every one of those kind of broken places. It's up to us to build those connections, and we all hope to help people build those. But it goes all the way back to, the very beginning. The two people did the one thing they weren't supposed to do, and they did the wrong thing, and they had a choice. And I think we have a choice in front of us. The choice that they had was to trust God, to trust God's generosity. And God might have said, well, watch out for that snake. Don't let him fool you, but you're forgiven. Go on about your business. But instead they chose blame, and they chose hiding. And so we can't pretend that we don't have those same choices in front of us. We have those same choices of whether we blame or hide, or whether
Which could be unfollow, or all of that in our current culture,
or whether we trust that God really has chosen to be with us, and that God really is with us, and that's the choice that the church offers.
It's beautiful. I think on every episode we've talked about the fact that there's a loneliness epidemic in our culture, despite being connected. And I think what you're saying relates to that of being seen and being known is different than joining a group. And I think when the church is at its best, that's what kind of community it's creating. How about for you, Elizabeth?
Well, I think that we all are looking deeply to find ourselves. And I think we do that in any community that we join. And we have many opportunities to join different communities in our lives. And when I think about what it is to join a church community, the thing that shines brighter than any other option that I have is the message of Jesus, and the opportunity to live as a person who is searching out the good news of God in every situation, who's living with hope and trust that God provides, and that truth feels different than the world might tell me it should, and that truth requires me to not always know the next thing, but there is no other identity that I can imagine that would give me the sustenance to live through life. And so I think when I think about why church, it's an answer that would be, well, because you have a lot of choices, and it's the one that will hold you throughout every stage of your life, and it will hold you with your family, chosen and given by birth. And it has over time, even through all of the imperfections, been a constant because of our efforts to create community around what the gospel teaches us and what the gospel gives us as a truth.
I love that it is something that can hold you always, right? That there's Your body might not last to play pickleball till you're 90. This place might figure out a way to still tell you you're beloved and what that looks like.
Someone actually, that exact same thing early in my time as an Episcopalian said, when my 10-year-old asked me why we should go to church, my answer was, you really love soccer now, but soccer is not going to be with you forever. But this experience, this thing that you're choosing to do because we tell you have to choose to do it, is a thing that we understand will be with you through all the stages. And I think that that's a really helpful thing to remember, because there are a lot of other things that we can choose and that we're pulled to do. And this is the one that can hold us.
I think one thing I love about that answer is it flies in the face of, this is the thing of rightness, and this is, we have all the answers and we've figured it out. All you're saying is it can hold you. And who knows what it's going to hold you through or how it's going to show up. I wonder, as we're moving towards a close in our conversation, in a short word or phrase, or paragraph, but only one, what is your hope for this next season at Christ Church? I also know that could be its own podcast, which is why I started with in a short word, phrase, or paragraph. What's your hope?
I think I'll start, and my paragraph, little preamble is
That's such a great way to get some more in there. Go ahead, Gunnar.
well, to that last point, I think just speaking to this moment that we're in, this feels like the scariest moment for many of us that we've ever experienced.
Yeah.
It is not the scariest moment in history, and it is not the scariest moment that the church has been through. This is not the darkest time that's happened in 2,000 years. So starting with that truth, but then getting to, it is the scariest time we have been through personally.
Yeah.
And so looking to, what do Christians do when they're in the scariest moment of their life for 2,000 years? They come to church and they pray and they bake casseroles and they knit prayer shawls and they show up. And so that is my kind of hope, is in a time of distraction, fear, all the things that we've named, go deeper in your faith. That's always the invitation, is kind of when in doubt, get in the middle of it. When in doubt, show up more, commit to more, raise your hand and say, yeah, I'd love to help with that thing. Because you won't be disappointed. No one said, I have too much community. I've got too many people praying for me. I've got, just too much joy right now. No one said that. And so I think that's my hope. That was like 3 paragraphs.
That's okay.
Go deeper.
Yeah. I love it.
I'll jump onto that and say the going deeper and the recognition that the world calls us to so many things and demands and steals so much of our attention and our time. And some of that is, I don't want to set up a world versus spirit dichotomy where none of that is joyful, because some of it is. But to recognize the way in which, what are we being generous to?
Yeah.
What are we giving ourselves to? And to invite myself and others to give myself more fully to curiosity and wonder and unknowing, rather than certainty and a brittle kind of hardness.
Good. Joshua or Elizabeth, what are your hopes?
Look, I think that there's a revival happening in the world right now.
Okay.
And I think that people are returning to faith as a way to figure out how to love God and how to care for each other and how to live out their vocations in the world. And my hope for Christ Church is that we continue to do what we're doing right now, which is that we continue to make disciples who have a story to tell about what God's up to, and that they do it with generous hearts, and that they say it as often as they can so that other people can come and discover and find the good news that they found to be true. And it doesn't mean that there aren't hard things happening. It doesn't mean that we don't know more about hard things that are happening in the world. But I have a lot of hope and a lot of reason to be joyful and glad right now in this world, notwithstanding anything that's going on, because I think that God's Spirit is up to something, and I think that God's Spirit is up to something good, and so I'm excited about where we are, and I'm excited about what's happening, and my hope is that people just keep hearing the good news and being transformed by it. So that as our former presiding bishop likes to say, we can make of this old world a new world, and love can keep finding a way.
I interviewed a person who's been helping with children and youth for over 20 years, and I asked her last week or 2 weeks ago, why do you keep showing up? And she was like, because hanging out with them gives me hope for the world. Like, I can see it. I can see the God Spirit moving in our young people, and I need that reminder on the daily. So, Elizabeth, what do you think?
Well, amen. Well done, colleagues. And I think what I hope for the next season for Christ Church is that this can continue to be a place where people are trusting that the Spirit is working. Amen. And that the traditions of our liturgy and the truths that we learn in our theology are able to carry us out from this place with deep relationship here, that then helps us to be people who build unity and love in the places that we're able to be in the world.
How about you? What do you hope? No, you don't get to get off the hook on this one. Come on. What do you hope for Christ Church in this next season?
I hope for a boldness to name the ways that God is at work, and to not assume that people can see it, but to be people who name. You used the word glitter earlier, and the annoyingness of glitter in a craft project aside,
yes,
I think that we have forgotten that God can sparkle in this world. And I think our phones are part of it, because it's the constant injection of, nope, there's just jagged, there's just jagged, there's just jagged. Yeah. And I want to be part of a church that can say, God is good, not ignoring that there are things that are real and hard and awful. But I think we've lost the ability to say, let me tell you where God, name God in the room, right? And we're waiting for people to bring it to us. Yeah. And I hope that this is a place, and I shared, my first day here was the day the beam on the new building went in, which was a fun day to just be here. And my boss, Natalie, was like, sign your name. I'm like, okay, I've been here for 6 minutes. I'm just gonna put my name. And I have prayed multiple times walking by that building that there would be thousands of more names that get added to that space and spoken in prayer, and that the names that are added are people who understand that God is at work, that God is drawing near.
Sounds like we need to do like a good glitter project. So we need to reclaim glitter as not being annoying in craft projects, but good for the world.
Good for the world.
Be good glitter.
Yes,
maybe that's what we can do.
So on this podcast, we have ended every conversation with some humor, in that I have acknowledged that during hard times, lots of people lean into God, but they also lean into food. And so I want to know what your go-to comfort food is on a day that feels like too much.
Now, I love a sweet treat. So really, any kind of sweet treat at the end of a long day is going to make me feel a lot better. But anything with mint and chocolate. So mint chocolate chip ice cream, yolk peppermint patty, dark chocolate with mint. Really
any mint and chocolate.
Yeah, I feel like Forrest Gump.
Yeah. I'll just take them all.
But really anything. You want to get a way into my heart. Mint chocolate.
Peppermint.
Oh my gosh. Will you dress up like Forrest Gump for Halloween this year?
I'll be Bubba.
Could you? Oh my goodness. This would be epic. Okay.
That's good. All right. What's your go-to comfort food?
I'm going to be hyper specific, but also aware that I don't need to eat too many of these. The Trader Joe's dark chocolate peanut butter cups, both at home and thanks to our lovely Agatha here at the office.
Yes. She
God is
keeps
real.
those stacked.
God is real every time I walk by, and it's never been empty.
Yes.
Sometimes I've taken the last one.
But
And you didn't feel guilty about it, did you?
That was enough.
Yeah.
God provides.
Oh, that's what you're teaching people. I'm going to take the last chocolate. God is enough for you.
Yes.
Okay, good. I love it.
I like your choices, but I am always up for any kind of a baked good. More flour, the better. Sorry, Joshua.
That's okay. That's all right.
So, right away I went to like coconut cake or carrot cake,
Oh,
but
gosh.
maybe a crusty sourdough bread would actually probably be
Wow.
my choice.
I'll go for that.
Good.
So look, I'm an always tacos guy. Look, if I'm celebrating, if I'm sad, if it's I can eat tortilla chips and tacos for any occasion. And I haven't figured out how to get it into Christmas or Thanksgiving meals yet, but I'm always working towards it. So anyway, persevere. I'm trying.
And as a final question, what are you grateful for today?
This colleague group and for your creativity in getting us here.
Yeah, what we talked about at the beginning of just the things we get to do. So like today, in the 5 hours I've been here, just the incredible things I've gotten to see and be a part of. There's never a dull moment. There's a lot of glitter. The work I get to do, so I'm grateful.
I'm thankful for vision and leadership. Chip's not here with us today. We have other clergy colleagues adjacent who aren't here today. Conversations like this and us arriving in this moment and naming the things that we're doing, they don't happen by accident. God is up to work and God's doing things, but it also takes real vision and real creativity. And Chip as our rector and the vestry through their spiritual leadership in this place for generation after generation after generation have created a place where Christ Church can be a light in the world. And today, like the rest of my colleagues, I'm just really grateful for vision and leadership and the opportunity to serve and to be among this group of people at this time in this place.
And because it's of the moment, I can say I'm grateful for the Christ Church Women's Bible Study because I just got out of teaching that today, and this will date the podcast, but
That's okay.
recording. But it's a joy to be in a room full of curious people who give thanks for me being curious with them.
That's good. Well, I want to thank you all. I appreciate your time and you sharing your stories and showing up for our listeners with generous hearts.
Absolutely.
Thanks so much.
Yep. Thank you.
I hope that episode was a blessing to your spirit. I loved the way that these humans talk about God at work among us. And I hope today, wherever you find yourself listening, in the midst of what seems to be jagged, that you see God sparkle, that you see glitter glimpses of the Spirit at work in your life. And we'd love to hear those stories. I want to invite you to use the link in the show notes to share the stories of generosity and glitter and hope with us. You can use the link to leave us a voice memo or send us an email. And lastly, because I am the director of giving, it won't surprise you that I want to invite you to be part of the stories that are happening in this place by making a financial commitment, what we call a pledge. You can do that online at christchurchcharlotte.org. Thank you for listening, for showing up, and know that you are held by God with a generous heart.